statement. We want to foster a sense of belonging in people through community, encourage them to become their best selves, work with them to better their communities, now and for future generations, and enable them to bring humanism and science to those around them, all in order to help them build a meaningful life. Address, Joe.
Morning, everybody. So, my address today. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I really struggle with this topic. I think I've been hanging out with Austin too much lately, and his
I can't hear you back here.
All right. How about that? Is that better?
That's much better.
A lot better.
So, I think I've been hanging around with Austin too much, playing our D&D game together, and his anarchy is wearing off on me. And I was trying to think of like some really good examples from my own life about like, all right, how can I tie in, living better into, to a political topic when I'm kind of, I don't know, I feel like right now, my like political like outlet is like here, is trying to build community, is trying to, doing our little garden initiative, trying to, build up my own capacity at home, worrying about education for my kids. And I realized that, there's a lot of different ways, to bring about political change. In these times where things are, people are stressed out, things are a little more difficult than, these last 4 years. But it gives me hope that there's people out there, like the Ranked Choice campaign, trying to do things to make our voices heard better, to actually make our representatives listen to us. And I know that this ranked choice voting is one of those ways of doing it. I remember my best friend Matt told me, I don't know, this was like years ago when he was in graduate school, so when I first heard about the topic and how it really does bring about change in how things are done. And so it kind of gives me hope that we might be able to, despite the difficulties, we might be able to bring about some positive out of the darkness. So this is going to be my plug for if people want to get more involved in conversations, about topics like ranked choice, about other ways to get involved with the community. This is a link to our Discord server. If you're interested in trying to drum up some support, get people chatting in there, trying to just find another way for us to build community better. Let me know if that link's not working. I can always come down after lunch and share a link from my phone. I've had some troubleshooting issues with it. Yeah, so I forgot to post a picture, but Justine and Bobby are out in the audience right now. One of our first events for doing our gardening initiative was a couple weeks ago. We were actually out back here working, trying to get the play structure for the kids into a better shape. So it was very successful. About an hour and a half, cranked that all out. Big tools, it was a lot of fun. Have more to share with you about this in the future. We're planning our next gathering. It's old slide. If anybody's got any questions about native plants, feel free to hit me up. All right, John, come back up here.
All right, moment of wonder. We have a really cool opportunity coming up that I wanted to share with you. And I would give you the date that you need to look, but I can't because we don't know. This is an opportunity to actually see a star go nova. Now you think, okay, but hold on a second, you can't predict that. It can happen anytime, right? Sort of. For what we know of as a supernova explosion, that's often the case. However, there are also nova explosions, and those happen, they can happen in a situation where you have two stars. If you have two stars and orbiting each other, and one of them is a small dense star that you can get after gravitational collapse. It'll suck hydrogen off from the larger star. And as the hydrogen builds up on the surface, it gets to a certain point where it reaches enough, it's not the same thing as critical mass, but it's similar, to where it reaches enough hydrogen to explode. And it explodes through fusion, not a chemical reaction. And that makes a nova explosion that looks like this. The star will become 1,000,000 times brighter than normal, but only for a span of a couple 3 days. Now, because it has a certain rate that it sucks the hydrogen off from the other star, then what happens is it builds up the hydrogen, goes nova, and then collapses back down, starts sucking hydrogen again, and the whole cycle repeats. And it repeats with a decent periodicity because it's based on the rate that it sucks hydrogen. So, we know of about a dozen stars that do this, and they have various times between nova explosions. It turns out that practically all of them go from way too dim to see to being pretty dim and you can't really see them. So you're like, we're on luck, right? You can't even see this, except for one. There is one that we know of that goes from being way too dim to see to being a pretty bright star. And that happens every 46 years. The last time it did this was 46 years ago. So it's coming up really soon. I'll tell you how to find it. And I'll tell you what's going to happen. You'll look there some night and you won't see a star. And fine, because like I said, it's way too dim to see. But the night that it goes, and for a couple days, it'll be as bright as the North Star. So pretty bright. And then you'll be able to see the nova with your own eyes. So, another thing you can do is you can check spaceweather.com. Spaceweather.com has a little counter here where they check how bright it is every day, and if it'll start to go up a little bit, you'll get a little bit of a warning. It's quite likely that you won't see this start to kick up, but all of a sudden you'll see on the news people will be talking about it, and then you'll know. You only have a couple nights, and you're in Michigan. If one of them's cloudy, you better hit the next one, right? And so if you don't know where to look, you're not going to be able to pick out that one star. So that's what I want to explain. If you're going with more than one person, and I highly recommend this as a parent, as if you've got kids, if you know kids, if you've ever seen a kid somewhere, right? I highly recommend to share the wonders of our universe with them at every opportunity. A really good way to do that at night is with a laser pointer. If you get a green laser pointer, they're bright enough that you can see the beam. Because you can see the beam, you can point to a certain star. I don't know how many times in, like, when Ronald Reagan was president, right? I would say to someone, look, that star right there. They'd say, that star? I'd say, yeah, that one. No, that one? No, which one? That one star. It's white. It's right there, right? How do you point out a star? Easy, with a laser pointer. If you have a laser pointer like this, you can say, that star right there, and you can see exactly the one that's being pointed at. It's really neat. So I recommend to get these. And by the way, when all the news hits that the nova's going off and you've got one day to see it, you're not going to have time to order one of these on Amazon. You got to do it now. And like I said, if kids exist, you want to do it anyway. So, tell you how to see it. Okay, first of all, how many people have heard of the Big Dipper? All right. How many people can find it in the sky? Okay, good. It's not that hard. You look north. It looks like this. It looks like a little bowl with a handle. And so you look north, you can see the Big Dipper. They're all pretty bright stars. That's the start. That's the place to start. It's easy to start that way. And so what you do is you take a look at that Big Dipper and you follow the handle of the Big Dipper. The handle of the Big Dipper is curved. So you just continue that curve away from the bowl. So the bowl's here, handle's like this. You continue that curve away from the bowl, and it arcs over to the brightest star in the sky. That star is Arcturus. The way you remember, the way I remember this is you follow the arc over to Arcturus. Okay, brightest star in the sky. The North Star is not the brightest star in the sky. People say that, it's not true. It's a bright star. It's not nearly the brightest star in the sky. Okay, next one's a little tricky, but not that hard. What you do is you take a look at, remember, we followed the arc to Arcturus, It's a good ways. It's way across the sky. And then you draw a spike from this corner, the lower left corner of the bowl, through the middle of the handle edge, to the next brightest star in the sky, Vega. If you saw the movie Contact, it's about Vega, right? Vega is a very bright star. These two stars are obvious. They're the two brightest stars in the sky. So, what you do is you identify Arcturus, you identify Vega. Okay, now you're in good shape. What you do then, you draw a line between Arcturus and Vega. You can see this big square of Hercules that's a little closer to Vega. A little closer to Arcturus is this bowl, Corona Borealis, the northern bowl. It's a bowl-shaped constellation, looks like this. These two stars are bright, these are kind of hard to see, especially if you're in a place with a lot of light pollution. And if you look to the lower left corner of the bowl, you won't see anything, because it hasn't gone off yet. And you're practicing ahead of time. But when it goes off, you look right here, you'll see a bright star, as bright as the North Star. That's the nova explosion. Now, we don't know exactly when it's going to go off. Sometime probably in the next 6 months, 8 months, but we really don't know. And of course, the amazing thing is, if you look at this from, a wider perspective, this thing went off thousands of years ago. There's a blast of light coming towards us. It's out there, it's on its way here, it's about to hit, it could hit tomorrow, it could hit a month from now, but when it happens, you'll be able to see the nova explosion. You don't have to remember all those steps. Who's going to remember all those, right? I'll remember them because I wrote them out. But I know that you won't remember them. Just check naturalisticpaganism.org, that's my blog, and go to the blog on May 5th, last year, 2024, has those steps written out, easy to follow, but you can get the laser pointer right away. So there we go. That's our moment of wonder. Now we have a minute with AJ for ranked choice voting. Yeah.
I just want to point out, because I've been doing a lot of star watching lately, that the Big Dipper, Ursa Major, around this time of year, in the early 90s, we would be watching like 10, 12 o'clock. It's actually closer to straight above you.
That's right, because it arcs around. Yep. So you look north, but it'll be up like that.
It'll be way up there.
Great.
If I may as well.
Yeah.
There are numerous apps for your phone.
Oh, yeah.
That will also, help. You could actually just either find it in the, tonight's events or whatever, or you can type in the technical name of this event, and it'll put a little marker, and you just do this. Oh, look, there it is. Very, very helpful. Little guide you right to it.
Yeah, with that, you can just skip all the steps. Put it
No, these steps are great.
Corona Borealis, that constellation.
People should learn how to do it.
Well, yeah, that's true.
I agree. Like, I was like, oh, this sounds like but also, I think that the process would be fun.
All right. Thanks, Ron. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
Great. Okay, so today I'm here to talk about ranked choice voting, which is the style of voting that Rank My Vote in Michigan is pushing.
Speaking to the microphone.
Put it a little closer.
Yeah, it doesn't have much range. You gotta be right up by it.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
There we go. Good? All right. Yeah, so this is the style of voting that Rank My Vote is pushing to have on the ballot for 2026. And I'll give a little introduction oh, sorry. Okay, there we go. I'll give a little introduction to what ranked choice voting is. We'll detail kind of how it works. Move on to the specifics of how it improves upon plurality voting, which is our current form of voting. And then I'll detail our plan to to get this enacted in Michigan. And then lastly, how you can get involved, which we're always happy to have more volunteers. This is a volunteer organization, and we need volunteers to achieve our goal. And then lastly, I'll have Q&A, which we'll be happy to take any questions. Okay, so as an exercise, take a few seconds here, maybe 30 seconds, and among each other, discuss how you would describe politics today in one word. I'll give you some time. We've done this a lot. It's always interesting to get people's opinions.
Stressful.
Yeah, that was the big one. Corrupt is a common one, self-centered. Not great, right? We don't want to see this when we think of politics. Politics should be working for the people, and these words to me do not really work for the people. This is a Pew study, so this is real people, what their thoughts are, and it evidently aligns with all of you. So, what I want to highlight here is that these are not really referring to the specific politicians. This is a system. This is a system issue. We have a flawed system which produces flawed incentives, and those flawed incentives result in flawed behaviors. Now, this is the key point. We don't hate the player, we hate the game, and we want to change the game. So, the problems with our current system. First past the post, or plurality voting, it splits majorities, it causes polarization, divisiveness, incivility, all those words that we were looking at before. We see that politicians are not really representing their community because they're not catering to a majority. And voters are disenfranchised. So many people don't even bother to vote because they don't think that it represents them, their politician will represent their causes, and it just causes non-participation. So, our system that we think we think ranked choice voting is a system that will solve these problems, and it puts the power back in the hands of the people. This is that better system. A system where the whole community can get together and make their choices without having to balance their vote against the lesser of two evils. And we think that it can transform politics and get rid of a lot of the problems that we see that are a result of that flawed system. Sorry.
I found that I had to hold it up a little higher.
Hold it up? Okay.
Yeah.
So, we're going to do a quick demo. The QR code is on those sheets, but you can scan it here too. And it's a simulated election. We're going to vote for the mayor of Handy Town. Now, you see our candidates there. Most of them are chocolate, but we do have a Skittles there. So if you're not very chocolate inclined, you have your option. Could we get that link clipped? We're going to go through it actually. We need a kind of a demo person, because it's going to come out of the PowerPoint. There we go. Okay. So, I'll talk about how ranked choice voting improves upon plurality voting. That's really what we want to explain to you really get support for. And so this is a traditional plurality election. We're going to go through the mechanics of what would happen. So here, this is, of course, Star Wars as a reference. Good topic, actually, considering our Nova discussion here. Here we have pretty good support for Luke, right? A clear majority, 60%, that's a pretty good mandate. Voting against Darth Vader, right? This is simple enough. Plurality voting, not really a problem. But, we see the majority wins. But when you add another candidate who's very similar to Luke, such as Leia, and now Leia probably is the better candidate for Luke here because Leia has government experience, she's aligned on the values that Luke shares, but voters might be convinced that she can actually get things done better than Luke can. So a lot of the voters for the light side, of course, split their vote towards Leia. And what we see here happening is they both lose. And Vader wins with 40% of the vote. So key point here, not the majority, only 40% of people voted for Vader. 60% of people did not want him to win. And he wins this election. This is plurality, first past the post. With ranked choice voting, we see that with two candidates, that's still the case. Luke will win 60% of the vote. But where it comes into play is when you have two candidates that are similar. With ranked choice, people voted, they ranked Leah first, then they ranked Luke, and then they ranked Vader. Now, when Luke clearly has the minimum votes, the lowest amount, his ballots get moved on and passed to the next vote. This is an extreme case where every single person that voted for Luke has their vote then transferred to Leah. In reality, that's what's not going to be 100%, but just for clarity, now we see the votes get transferred to Leah, and Leah wins the election. So you have still your light side of the force, which has the majority of support, now wins the election, despite Leah running. A lot of people would call Leah a spoiler in this election, that she takes away votes from Luke, and as a result, the other party wins. Ranked choice voting eliminates that possibility. There is no such thing as a spoiler with ranked choice voting. This happens a lot. We've seen this happen many times. In 1992, Ross Perot, of course, very popular businessman, probably took a lot from the Republican side of the vote, and Bill Clinton wins that election, notably 43%, less than the majority. In 2000, the famous hanging chads incident in Florida, this election was decided by 537 votes. So, in reality, people like to point to Ralph Nader as being a spoiler in this election. In reality, every single candidate is a spoiler. Every single candidate has more than 537 votes. So it wasn't only Nader. Even in state elections in 2016, we see Trump winning Michigan with 47.5% of the vote. Less than the majority of Michiganders approved of Trump and wanted him to be elected. But because of those other candidates taking away votes, and with plurality being a spoiler, we don't see any candidate getting the majority of the vote. On the other side of the coin, Clinton also did not get the majority, so if she were to win, again, not the vote. Most recently, Detroit's 13th congressional district. This one is an extreme amount. This is the primary for the Democratic Party, which the 13th is a reliably Democratic district, so in reality, whoever wins the primary is going to win the seat. And we see 78% of the constituency in that election did not want the winner of the primary to win. Only 28% of the vote. But because it was so hotly contested, the winner of that primary and the winner of the seat ended up representing only 20% of the constituency in that district. So, this further causes polarization. And the reason that is because it's a flawed system, flawed incentives. You have to play the game if you're trying to win. Plurality voters, you're either voting for me or you're voting against me, basically. So politicians either view you as a 1 or a 0. There's no incentive to cater to anyone but your base, right? You want to get the most support from the people that are likely to support you. The people that are not likely to support you, or even half likely to support you, you don't care about it. It's not worth your time. With ranked choice voting, all voters have value. If I have a 3-horse race, so to speak, and one of my competitors is very similar to me, I'm going to appeal to their voters too. I'm going to say, you should vote for me because, I think I'm the best candidate. But if you don't, vote for him or vote for her. And that incentivizes people to be more be more pleasant around the campaign because you want to look good to every voter. Every voter matters. Because even if I'm the 3rd, 4th, 5th choice, it still might work out that 5th choice vote for me wins me the election. So I need to be able to appeal to everybody, to the broadest base of support, and earn that majority. We see also that voters are disenfranchised this way. We're talking about that 13th congressional district. All the Republicans in that district, or Libertarians, or Greens, they're functionally unrepresented because that district is reliably Democratic. Unless they vote in the Democratic primary, their vote really doesn't matter because it's not going to be counted. It'll be counted literally, but it's not going to change the results of the election. The primary is what determines that election. Now, with ranked choice voting, that becomes much healthier because you don't have a spoiler effect. So all candidates are incentivized to run. There's no existing people telling, oh no, don't run, you're just going to take votes away from us. You see more diverse candidates for that reason, more representative candidates. And it empowers the broadly appealing candidates. As I said, you need to be competing for your 2nd, your 3rd, your 5th vote options. From the voter side, You have more options, which is great. That's always a good thing. You never want to be having to pick the lesser of two evils, right? You have less strategic voting, like I just said. You can pick your favorite. If you are a libertarian, if you are a green, you can vote for that person, your candidate, and then list Democratic, Republican, whatever you might prefer, without thinking, oh, I'm throwing my vote away, or this vote isn't going to actually make a difference. Your vote is always in play. It trickles in. As your candidate gets eliminated, it gets transferred. As long as you list, it continues to play out. So we also see a more equitable representation of the voters. This is an interesting comparison. So New York City ran its first elections for its city council with ranked choice voting in 2021. This is the largest group in America that, by population, that uses ranked choice voting. And on the left pie chart there, the leftmost one, that would be the 2017 makeup and the assumed makeup of the council, split by race. On the right, you see these are the council members. On the right, you see what actually happened in 2021. And the interesting comparison there is that all the way on the right, the separate table, is the New York City population. So striking resemblance from the ranked choice voting results to the actual demographics. Of course, this is not necessarily a politics thing, or where you lean on the political spectrum, but the point is that you end up with more representative, more accurate representation of your constituency. Other benefits of ranked choice voting: increased voter satisfaction and engagement with the system. Voter turnout statistically is 17% higher in municipal elections where ranked choice voting is used. 17% more ballots are having a meaningful impact on the outcome of the election, meaning the ballot that ends up voting for either the winner or the runner-up of the election, where currently if I voted Libertarian, that would not be an impactful ballot. And then we see consistently voters are satisfied using the system and they think that it is not hard to use. 77% in New York City, 94% in Utah. Utah's actually very large amounts of usage at city level. And all of these are also very simple. 95% simple in New York City, 91% in Florida. Virginia Republicans is actually a great story because they elected to use it in their primaries. And they vastly overachieved the outcome because they ended up electing broadly appealing candidates in their primaries because that's what ranked choice vote drives. And they overachieved in the actual general election compared to expectation. We think that's the main reason that happened. Increased civility. Like I said, you have to appeal to the broad base. It doesn't make me look good to attack my competitors in the race. It doesn't make me look like a good person. And if everybody needs to support me, that's not a good look. We see fewer personal attacks, fewer negative words during debates. We see more collaboration. A good example here is that in this chart, if I'm candidate A, right, and I'm trying to win the election, who am I most suited to attack? What should my biggest competitor be? One might think D, the other ideologically opposed person. But in reality, I'm going to be attacking B and C because in plurality, they're going to steal my votes. I'm probably not going to win the votes from D. So I need to make sure that I take B and C out of the race so I have any chance to win. With ranked choice voting, I'm going to say B and C are great candidates. If you're voting for them, great. But if you do vote for them, rank B second. And you're going to see alignment. So, a summary here. Ranked choice vote versus plurality. This is a lot to do with kind of the mechanics of it, which is a common critique. In reality, it is not that hard to implement, and I'll detail that later. But with plurality, kind of the only way you win is with cost, because we will have a bit of a cost to update machines. Current machines are completely capable in Michigan of running ranked choice, but you do have to update them. And then education for the voters, which is really important. We want to make sure that voters are educated and they know how to rank the ballot. In a few years of using it, it becomes a non-issue, but of course with a change, we want to make sure that they're educated. And we do see in a few years, the statistics prove that there is no difference between plurality and ranked choice voting on the raid the ballots every day for, various misunderstandings. So let's do that quick. Status in the U.S. So we have a couple states, Maine and Alaska, which you may be familiar with. The last election, actually, Alaska managed to retain ranked choice voting. There was a big push from those that lost out in previous elections because they didn't understand how they needed to change their campaigning strategy to remove ranked choice voting, but the voters held on. The voters did approve maintaining it. A number of cities, big ones include New York City, of course, new one in the election, Washington, D.C., among some others. Now, Michigan has had trouble in the past. We have a couple cities, and I'll detail that later, that are trying to use it, but of course, no statewide initiative yet. That's where we come in. There we go. Okay, so far we are 5 for 5 in Michigan. We initially, our organization was targeted on going city by city and adopting it locally, kind of moving from the ground up. We have a problem with that because there's a rule in the state constitution that basically forbids it on the technicality of the ballot format. The format doesn't align with how plurality ballots are formatted. And so the state attorney general does not allow those cities to use ranked choice voting. Ferndale, interestingly, has been elected to use it in 2004, so over 20 years now, but they've been unable to use it because of that technicality. So that's why we are pivoting to move to a state constitutional amendment. We've set up a number of policy summits to arrive at the amendment in its current form. We've been conducting polls, had open invitation meetings to discuss the policy. We've consulted with Fair Vote Experts, which is a national ranked choice vote advocacy group. Lawyers, of course, all the language has to be nailed down. If you have typos, it'll get booted from the ballot, so you gotta have lawyers for that. And then, of course, had a final open in-place summit, and we voted with ranked choice voting for those proposals. There we go. So, our state constitutional amendment will include the presidential election, the gubernatorial election, U.S. Senate, U.S. House, Attorney General, Secretary of State, and the Michigan Senate House. So these are all the statewide races. Ranked choice voting will be mandated for statewide races. Key point as well is that the localities will be allowed to use whatever voting they want. So Ferndale could use ranked choice voting finally. If Farmington Hills decides to use plurality continually, so be it. That's fine. They can do what they want to do. So as I said, all single seat, all statewide elections, major party primaries, general elections. That's inclusive. All candidates afterwards can run as independent. So say if I was running as a Democrat and I did not win my primary, I would be enabled to run as an independent. Previously, that was not really allowed because it would disincentivize and I would end up as a spoiler, right? The Democrats would not want me to run after I lose a primary. So previously that was not allowed. Ranked choice voting, of course, as we learned, solves that problem. If I lose a Democratic primary, I can still run. I can get my first votes. I won't spoil. My votes will be transferred to the Democratic candidate if that works out that way. We're maintaining straight ticket voting. So if you want to just vote straight ticket Democrat, straight ticket Republican, that still works. And then lastly, of course, requiring funding. This works out to be about $7 a voter, mainly for education. There is some cost updating machines, as I said, but no new machines are required. The current machines we have are completely capable of counting ranked choice voting ballots. And so mainly a voter education thing. So how do we get there? Currently, we're finalizing the ballot. That's still in process. We're hoping to come to the end of that pretty soon. Currently. In 2025, we then have to start circulating and getting signatures. We estimate around 611,000 signatures will be required in order to get this proposal on the ballot for 2026. And then finally, in 2026, we have to vote it. Simple majority to pass. It's about 2,200,000 votes is what we estimate will be required in order to pass the constitutional amendment. So, a bit more details about our group. This is a nonpartisan group. We're not trying to arrange any certain party to be winning elections at a more frequent way. What we want to happen is for the local populace to be able to vote, to elect leaders that represent them, that they want to be in office, that a majority supports. Whether that's Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, Green, does not matter to us. We're nonprofit, volunteer-driven. I'm a volunteer. I live in Farmington Hills, like 5 minutes away from here. Bill lives in Ferndale. We have pretty much everybody working on this, aside from, I think, the lawyers, because you have to pay the lawyers. But pretty much everybody working on this is completely doing it on a volunteer basis. Most of our donations come from our volunteers and from other individuals like you, hopefully, that see ranked choice voting for what it is and value that implementation. As I mentioned earlier, we were also involved with passing those 5 out of 5 cities in Michigan. We also have Katie Fahey advising us. I don't know if you are all familiar, but the Voters Not Politicians movement to end gerrymandering in Michigan was led and spearheaded by Katie Fahey. So we're very happy to have her kind of on a strategic advising basis. She's not leading the program, but we have regular contact with her to get advice and use her wealth of knowledge to help improve our chances. So we need volunteers. That is one of the main goals of this presentation, is to hopefully have some volunteers sign up. We have a number of field teams, which you can see divided here. It's a little bit tough with the red there, but Oakland County itself is one unique field team. Of course, Oakland County is a very populous county, so a number of different ones involved. Of course, you can scan that QR code if you're interested. You can go online as well. We have a number of items that you can get interested in. Fundraising, of course, grant writing, speaker bureau, which is where I'm volunteering, social media, graphic design, press and media, volunteer engagement events. There's a lot of stuff that needs to get done, and not a lot of time to do it. So the more people, the better. So I know this group is pretty aligned with a lot of these things. I've heard talk about these events before, so we're happy to come out to those as well as follow-ups. And if you have other groups that you're involved with, we'd be happy to come present to them as well. So, quick QR code here. We have a number of social medias you can follow as well. The main website is rankedmyvote.org. And really, I just encourage you to donate if you value this and you think that this is a good opportunity. At the minimum, a small donation and signing up to our newsletter is important. A lot of the bigger ticket donors that have real sway look at little donations and see the grassroots element of it, and that convinces them that this is something that people want. So even if it's just a little bit amount, any little bit helps. Of course, we have upcoming events, similar kind of social events. So we're happy to have you involved in any capacity. So with that, actually, I think we missed Bill's slide, or maybe I spoke over Bill's slide. Sorry, Bill. I was on a roll. We have some time for Q&A. I'm happy to take any questions, and I'll do my best to answer. So thank you very much for your attention.
Royal Oak president here. I do remember the campaign in Royal Oak. I was really pleased about that. Excited to vote yes. Actually, the only argument that I saw is confusing. I don't feel that way. But what do you say to those individuals that I don't? I mean, my impulse to say like it's not confusing. You're an idiot. I know that's not the right thing to say.
Yeah, that is one that we get a lot, and that is why we denoted in the amendment funding for voter education. So we recognize that it is, by definition, slightly more confusing than a plurality vote. But in reality, we're familiar with ranking choices, right? Like when we go to the restaurant and we're trying to decide on pizza or something, we rank with our friends, right? I like this topping over that, whatever it is. The concept of ranking is not new to people. So it's really, it seems like that, but when you actually look at it, it's really not that much more confusing than a typical vote. And you see that in the data. Countries and municipalities that are using ranked choice voting consistently People do not find it hard. 95%, 91%. We saw it in the presentation. Australia has been using ranked choice voting for 100 years. So it's really not confusing as long as you educate on the changes, which we're proposing. Voters understand it, and they like it. It's better than you. Sure.
I think the question from the being confusing part, like the actual voting part, okay, yeah, we rank them. But then when it's not the, you know, when it's not the number one candidate who gets, who wins, you know, that do people fully understand that? Are they like, but yeah, that's not even the right one, and I don't get about how this is the one you want.
Understood. Yeah, so that's partially what the voter education will do. It's not only how do you fill out the ballot, it's also how is the ballot tabulated. Because, yeah, that is important. We get a lot of worry about like distrust in elections and just furthering that. But in reality, because of that support, and we can go to your perfect. So you could just submit a sample ballot. You can just rank that you want to move on. You can use that in that window, and it'll move on. So yeah, part of the funding is to explain, you know, this is how they're tabulated. And in reality, it's very simple. It's just you take from the bottom, their votes go up. Next round, the least support votes get moved up, and you keep going until you have a majority. You can just go.
I get to vote twice.
I don't. So you can. I think in this system you can actually do like third or two people, and it splits the. Or maybe yeah, I forget. So I'll give it a little explanation. So now we're submitted. If you hit preliminary results there. So we're up to 2,062 votes. Currently, Skittles is in the lead. If you scroll a little bit farther down, or the previous on the top there, top right. Yeah. So back to 1. So yeah, currently we have Skittles in the lead. That kind of makes sense because you have a lot of what would be spoilers on the chocolate side, right? So Skittles on the first round is leading. Special Dark is in last place, right? So they, because of that first choice, we know they can't win the election. So we cut out Special Dark and then go to next. Special Dark's votes, then you can see the plus signs there where they get distributed. So most people that voted for Special Dark ended up voting for Kit Kat as their second choice. So now we see Kit Kat take the lead over Skittles. Now Butterfinger has the least, we eliminate that. A good chunk of those went to Keith, interestingly. But a good chunk to Kit Kat as well. Kit Kat continues to run away. But notably, out of the 2,062 votes, you need at least 1,032 here to win. So we've not achieved that yet. So if we go one more next. Skittles actually gets eliminated, and we see a race between Kit Kat and Heath. And finally, Kit Kat has eclipsed the majority. So the key point here is you need a majority. If you do not get a majority of support, you will not be elected. And so that's how it works. In reality, it's really simple. You just cut the bottom one, they get redistributed, and there you go.
I have a question too, because I'm kind of curious when you said earlier, like if you used it for a primary, for example, and people get eliminated there, and then they could get back into the general election.
Yes.
Is there even a need for primaries, if that's the case?
Well, we had a lot of debate about that internally, and that is a good question. Part of the reason we think, because if you're not aware, Nevada, Oregon, I think Utah, and one other state, I forget which it was, in 2024 had ballot initiatives that all failed. So kind of a tough one. We were very disappointed at the election, but a lot of those initiatives also sought to address open primaries. And personally, we didn't want to do that because that's a lot of change to ask. I mean, this is a pretty big change to the system as it is. So to add primaries on, we think is too aggressive. It's just going to cause more confusion. So we're keeping primaries for that reason, and keeping the partisan primaries. As you said, yeah, if you get elected, or if you lose your primary, you can then run again, and it's not spoiled. So the main reason we didn't want to address primaries was that. Their primaries, yes, you might be able to make the argument they're not required, but it does also allow the parties to determine what candidate they want to support and easier for Democrats and Republicans and Libertarians all to select a candidate, get behind a candidate, and campaign. Realistically, if I lose the Democratic primary and I still run, it's probably unlikely that I would win that election. And I no longer have the support of the party. Of course, it's not impossible, but yeah, realistically, we didn't want to force too much change at the same time. And the voting mechanism to us was more important than the nature of the primary.
So how does recording work? So, like in an example, I forget the name of the first case, when they exceed their votes when, to the very lowest. But then in the second round, it wasn't transparent where those votes.
Oh, as in I think, yeah, because special dark, the figures say it's not really clear to see where special dark as they continue to go.
Right, or, as you go up the list.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, ultimately that's a principle, that's just the mechanism, right? So you know your vote. If I voted for special dark and I ranked at first and then I ranked, wherever it is, I know my vote is going to go through. So if I ranked, Heath second and Heath gets eliminated, then it goes to Kick at third. Like, I know that my vote went that way. And that's all done in the tabulation. There are provisions for hand count as well in the amendment. So all the questions of our current plurality system of how the vote gets counted, it's very much the same thing with ranked choice voting. The machines are able to tabulate pretty instantaneously. Sorry, go ahead.
I get that, but to earlier points that were made, my concern would be with transparency, given the environment where people are already thinking elections have been stolen, it's sort of, we'll try and say a lack of clear evidence sort of for the being stolen. The main concern for me would be, is this going to further facilitate the ability of some people to say, oh, I was robbed?
Yeah, we see that is not the case. In these elections that we've had, there's more engagement, there's more trust in the system in the municipalities that are using ranked choice voting. And it's because the system works better. Ultimately, you get better representative candidates, and so people are not so concerned with it. You see very clearly that the vote is moved on. It's publicized very well. You can see that process. So in the same way that you might have a problem doubting, oh, if I really voted for this candidate in a plurality election, yeah, you can make a big margin, but that's not a ranked choice voting problem. That's a just general voting problem. Yeah.
Mine was one about the transparency, because I completely agree. That was my main concern. With the amendment that you have, you just said that you can easily see how it moves on. Is there like a way for us to see it like we did with the mayor of Candy Town example, where like with the different rounds,
Yeah.
so that like transparency be available to the public as it comes? Like,
Yes.
Candidates get eliminated from being voted. Is that part of the amendment to have that information spread at the end?
Yes, exactly. So they're the same way that you see, online you can find the results of the election in plurality, you'll have the same thing with that process.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a flow chart. It's not a staged, click the button instance, but it's a flow chart of where the votes split. So if I have this body of votes on a third party candidate, that section moves up and then this section moves down to the other. So it is very clear to see where the votes went.
Probably have time for one more.
This isn't a huge deal, but how much of a difference in terms of like how long it takes to tabulate is there?
Yes. So the only instance really where there's an impact is like election night. It's going to be more hard to say this person won the race, right? You can of course predict a first round winner because that functionally would be like plurality. So if the first round, you can count those votes and say, yeah, the first round, you can get an idea, right? In terms of tabulation afterwards, it's pretty much the same speed as plurality, so you'll get results in the same way. In some instances, it will be actually better. Southern states use ranked choice voting already functionally because they have runoffs, which of course are a huge expense and a huge time delay. So any Southern state that adopts, actually you're getting a contraction of how long it takes to get your final result. So after the election itself, you may not get election night confirmation, which honestly we kind of haven't had recently anyway, but
Right.
you will get it pretty much at the same speed to finalize. So, yeah. All right.
Okay.
Yeah, I would have some more if I could, but thank you very much for your attention, and we hope we'll have your support.
Thank you. Okay, next assembly, June 8th. Hope you can make it. It's going to be fun. Upcoming events.